my knuckle buffin will run you through.
I like how Band of Fear forgot his name.
I know, it happens
It's
sometimes.
pretty great. It happens, you know.
True. Hello, everybody. I'm Sir Gooey Lawrence here, joined by Gooey Alexander for our GM training video on
The Deepest Fear.
The Deepest Fear is a small supplemental module that comes with Darkenhaven. I'm super excited for you to get into it. This is my first exposure to it, and Gooey Alexander here is going to give us lots of great tips for running this for our convention season.
So to talk about a brief overview of it, in a convention setting, this module should be run in 2 hours, and we're going to give you some tips to make sure it keeps moving and gets done in that time period. At your home game, it's probably going to last maybe about 3 hours, but you could complete it in 2 as well. To kind of go over the adventure, the party is called to Boogerton, which is a crime-ridden district in Darkenhaven, and they are there to help someone leave the gang life, and also to intercept a shipment of very hazardous materials that a gang is smuggling into Darkenhaven.
So in a lot of ways, it kind of has that classic D&D feel to it.
Absolutely. It's a classic adventure feel and has kind of a serious tone, but at the same time, you're going to have fun with it. Most of your enemies are halflings, and it's kind of hard to take halflings seriously.
Understandable. So with that, how to get your table at a convention up and running and moving through it right away?
So absolutely. It starts off by the party being drawn to a job board in Boogerton. The party are already adventurers who have been traveling and working together for some time. So that's what you want to tell them at the convention as well. And they pick up a listing on there that essentially invites them to come into this tavern, which is the Ize's Tap and Tumble. And there they want to seek out the individual who's behind the bar. The listing on the job posting is rather cryptic, but there is a check that you can give your party to help them kind of figure out where they need to go. Don't let them wander on that too long. After that, they'll introduce you to Smitty, is how I've decided to name this individual. She is a halfling that wants to leave the gang life. She kind of learned too much and understood that the gang is now smuggling flowstone dust. She was there with one of her friends, and he opened up a crate, and they both got sick from it, but her friend died from this, and this has scared her to the point where she no longer wants to be involved in the gang life.
So obviously clear motivations right off the bat and really easy adventure hooks for you to be able to get into the party and get them moving on the quest. Obviously, you don't want to spend the entire 2 hours in the tavern ordering drinks.
Oh, 100%. So she'll provide the party with all the information she knows, and she knows where the location of the warehouse is where they're storing this material. She knows how the shipments are coming and going. She also knows how many guards are there. In the text, she says there are about 8 guards, but in reality, the party is going to find out there are 4 when they arrive.
And that'll hopefully help the party speed up if they're someone like me where it's like, I want to recon the entire area the whole time. Yep. Basically, she's already provided that information, which should help the party speed through to kind of keep stuff moving in that convention pace.
Oh, 100%. There is also a hook here where she recommends that they go and kind of explore the streets of the local area and talk to the locals about the information. I recommend that you do push for this because there's an important plot hook here where they meet a woman who her son has been kind of recruited or more coerced into joining Nagelwaffin's gang. He comes up later in this adventure. His name is Robbie, and I like to just prime the players a little bit more so they have the option to, not accidentally kill this character and get that conclusion.
So when they're in Ize's Tap and Tumble, about how much time would you actually have the party stay here? And about at what point would you start kind of pushing them to make sure that you're keeping them on pace?
I'd have them immediately talk to the bartender and then start this whole kind of like list of dialogue and questions. Mm-hmm. And that really shouldn't go more than 15, 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. There is an NSRE that can happen in here where one of the patrons challenges them to a fight in the fighting pit in the tavern. In a con game, I would recommend skipping this. And then asking around Boogerton, right, where you're kind of like learning some more information, 10 minutes tops.
Again, the feel of Boogerton, it's very much slum area,
100%.
Very poor. People are probably asking money for information, things like that.
Absolutely. The party can learn enough information at this point where they can find the warehouse, right, and maybe scope it out a little bit. But there is an option where they can try to intercept a shipment. Mm-hmm. This won't last very long. It's going to last maybe 5 minutes. The party sets up. They conduct their ambush. The people who are driving the actual cart, they aren't real beings. They are essentially ash constructs. So the moment they're attacked, They fall apart if they are given any kind of communication. They don't respond in any way, so the party can just walk up, take control of the horses, or shoot both of them. They fall apart. However, they can find something important, which is a symbol of Discord Dune, the Strife Lord, and this ties in later if you run this adventure in a chain.
So question for you that we probably should have covered at the very start. So what kind of day or what kind of time of day are they actually walking into?
So generally the shipments are coming in the middle of the night.
Okay.
So we'd start them sometime late morning to early evening is when you'd want them to arrive at the tavern. Give them a couple hours to walk around, talk to people, stuff like that.
And then with your knowledge of the rest of the stuff that's in the adventure, how long would you kind of let them be on the streets of Boogerton trying to gather that information?
So gameplay, 15 minutes tops, 10-15 minutes tops. But time-wise, they can be there till evening. It's time-wise is kind of superfluous to a con game. It doesn't really matter too much. This adventure does need to take place all in the same day, though.
Okay.
They eventually, get to they are at the point where they want to assault the warehouse, right? And they're provided with essentially 4 options, right? They can go in through the front door, and this has a relatively high DC, an athletics check of 22 to break down the front door, which can be relatively challenging. They could try to sneak in. They could go in through the windows, or they could go in through the roof, right? So planning this route is probably where I'm seeing the time sink happening the most, right? A party could easily spend 45 minutes doing this, and we don't want that to happen. We want them through this in 15 minutes of planning, right?
And that's definitely where your informant Smitey is giving you most of all that information.
You can prime them on the information about, the roof, the window, the sneak or whatever, going in loud. You can prime them on that information. And that will essentially just leave them with having to confirm that that is still correct. After they do that, hopefully they have decided on an option. If not, you have the guards kick open the front door and start the fight. Essentially, there's a 15-minute clock there. They get in, and this is where they can see Robbie again. How I would recommend running Robbie, right, is Robbie is a 5th combatant in this situation. And the moment that Robbie takes damage or sees that there's a fight, he's going to surrender. Robbie does not want to fight. He has been pressed into essentially being in this gang. They see Robbie in here. There is a check that you can offer your party to essentially notice Robbie. He's smaller than the other ones, so they don't, sneak attack and pounce on him. But he will surrender the moment the fight starts, bringing the total number down to 4. We have rebalanced stats for level 3. This is originally a level 6 adventure. And the way I've done that is I have lowered the numbers on everything. Lower hit points, a little bit lower AC, lower damage output, but this lets you keep the strategy the same for running all of these monsters. And we're going to talk about strategy for just a moment here. Our Nagoboth and thugs are essentially rogues with pack tactics. So they want to group up and at least pair up when they're attacking people, or all gang up on one monster or one enemy. It really depends on how mean you want to be. But they gain advantage, which means they get sneak attack when they're fighting in pairs, so it's much more efficient for them to do that. So probably split them up into 2 groups of 2 and attack 2 enemies at the same time if you want to be kind of nice to your party, but still includes some tactics. Robbie is, surrendered or whatever. He's going to tell them whatever he knows. Robbie doesn't know a lot. He pretty much knows the same amount as Smitey. I would not let that interrogation go more than 5 minutes, right? Just tell your party, yeah, he tells you everything he knows, but it's no new information.
So don't let them get into the full torture scene that normally happens in a game.
The really important thing they do find, though, right, and this is something Robbie will tell them, is that they know that Smitey is a traitor to them, has betrayed them and is trying to leave the gang, and they're planning to essentially attempt to assassinate her in Iz's that night. So, it's already night, so the party is sensibly going to rush back
to Iz's Tavern.
Yeah, Iz's Tavern.
And obviously understanding that if there's 2 combats in this, if this one seems like it's running longer than you need to, thugs don't want to fight to the death. So
no, absolutely not.
Very much you could have them surrender once it looks like the party's going to take over if rules aren't going, in order to speed that up and really get to the climax battle.
Oh, 100%. The climax battle is when Nagoboffin, the leader of the gang, and his crew ambush you on your way to the tavern. So you're headed there, and Nagoboffin will speak to the party first, but the party's goals do not align with Nagoboffin's, and it will result in a fight. But essentially this fight will occur. Nagoboffin should leave once he gets low on HP. Essentially, he has a smoke bomb. He is able to disappear, and once he leaves, any thugs that are still alive are going to leave they're going to lay down their arms. They don't want to fight anymore. You know what I mean? Their leader already left. Another thing to keep in mind, you're in a city, so killing other people is going to result in the guards coming to talk to you. You're gonna have to speak to the authorities if you kill people. And that's also something you can mention to your party before you start. You're in a city, so killing people will have more consequences than in the wilderness.
One of the things that I know Alphinius goes through and preaches on a lot is that especially in a city, there's levels of escalation. So hey, if everybody's fighting with fists and you break out magic missile or a weapon, that's a certain level of escalation for it. So in kind of a similar manner, just as you're kind of setting your party's expectations, that's another thing to think about in civilized society. You need to watch how far you escalate something.
Yes, 100%. You'll defeat Nagelboffen, get back to Izes. Smitey is okay and essentially is able to leave the gang life. There is a post-credit scene, which you can do if you want, where there is, a publication in the Darkenhaven, newsletter or paper where it essentially is talking about what occurred here. And also a wanted poster goes up for Nagelboffen. Another thing to keep in mind, though, is the party might want to handle the flowstone that they know is already in the warehouse. So they would go speak to authorities about that. And you can quickly just say, like, yeah, you're able to flag down a guard. The guard comes back or the crew, and then a bunch of mages tape off the area and dispose of it. There is a NSRE, which is non-lethal, which is a betting or gambling thing. I don't know if you'll be able to fit that in a 2-hour section, but all of these NSREs and GUI editions should occur while they are exploring and looking for information.
Yeah, once you kind of get into the pipeline of the actual adventure of it, being that you're pursuing the gang and stuff, then it's kind of...
none of them should occur between the fight at the warehouse and the fight with Nagelboffen, or even after that. It should occur in that initial investigatory period. But yeah, so that's pretty much where we're at with the adventure. It runs relatively quickly and is pretty tight. So I do have some additional notes kind of going through at the end. And that is, to speed up combat, what I'll do is I have everyone roll initiative at the same time, and then I just count down. I go 25, 24, 23, 22, and I just move their flags on my GM screen to essentially have it in the right order, and then, have already rolled my stuff. And then when I have people who already know what they're going to do on their turn, right, I have them roll attack and damage already, so that when I get to them, they're like, yeah, I rolled a 19, and it's 15 damage if it hits, right? Way faster. You know what I mean? Just moves through the game
rather than keeping the AC hidden and stuff. You're able to just keep.
Yep, absolutely. All the monsters in this adventure except Nagelboffen. There are only 2 monsters in this adventure because you're not running the NSRE in the con game. But they have 15 AC. Nagelboffen has 17. I would just tell my party, hey, 15 hits. You know what I mean? Go ahead and handle that. I do have some additional notes, and that is that. Nagelboffen should probably disappear at a certain HP, roughly about a quarter. He would disappear. He's not going to die over this fight. It's not worth it.
So how do you really give your players a satisfying climax when the big bad is going to get away at the end?
So defeating the big bad doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to die, right? The climax of this adventure is actually protecting Smitty. It's about saving her and giving her a new life, rather than killing Nagelboffen. He's not a reoccurring villain throughout this adventure. He just happens to be the guy you run into at the end. And him running away, you beating him on his own home turf is also a big win. You don't need to murder everyone to win.
Okay.
But another thing that I kind of like is I want you to encourage the party to really ask around and, do that kind of investigatory period, because I think it's a cool tie-in to say that this tips Nagelboffen off. He knows about the party because they've started asking questions. So if he, kind of mentions oh, you're the ones asking questions, that's a really nice tie back to kind of, unite this adventure.
Which would feel really rewarding as a player.
For sure. Absolutely. Because then your actions have directly had consequences. Absolutely. You know what I mean? Your investigation led to that. There is a lot of options that you have for specifically the maps. There's just a lot of place where the players can move around and fight. They can be relatively dynamic.
2 for Izes Tap and Tavern that came out wonderfully.
They're beautiful.
You have an awesome warehouse scene.
So the warehouse scene, remember, there is some verticality that can happen here. Enemies could climb on top of on crates and barrels. Same with the PCs. Also, the enemies could attack the PCs if they're rappelling down through the rope or through the ceiling. There are plenty of options there to really make the situation dynamic
and to really help set the scene for when they're investigating around Boogerton, trying to figure out things. You have a really nice street scene here of Boogerton as well.
Yep. Also, I would consider giving a name to Robbie's mother, as it will characterize her further. She also does make a reappearance if you save Robbie and return her home. And she gives the party a homemade blueberry pie as thanks. So
That's really the reward at the end
truly
of the day.
it is, But really, it's an adventure more about helping people who kind of, want to change their life and protecting Darkhaven from whatever is going on with importing huge amounts of incredibly toxic flowstone dust.
Absolutely. That sounds like it would be a really fun con game to run.
No, it's going to be great at the con. People are going to love it.
So, Gooey Alex, in your opinion, what portion of this adventure is really structured for roleplay, and what portion of it is really structured for combat?
So it's pretty clean cut. The first half where you meet Smitty, you investigate the area. The first hour, maybe a little bit less than that, will be roleplay. Then you'll start with potentially ambushing the caravan, right? And that's really where the combat part starts. You'll do the infiltration on the warehouse, a fight there. Then you walk back, you have another fight, and then it's a little bit more roleplay. So very slightly more is roleplay, but it's about half and half. You'll have to keep your time pretty close on there. Probably want to be into the warehouse by 50 minutes at the latest. Now, if you're confident that you can get, your combat through pretty quick, it is again only 4 enemies. They can dish out quite a bit of punishment to the party, and that's where you come in and they can loot greater potion of healing, some potion of invisibility, and you can give out multiple to the party, depending on how much damage the thugs have already done. That potion of invisibility will come up and be pretty beneficial later.
All right, Gooey Alexander, we're at the very end here for wrapping on up. What is your best Noggleboffin impression?
All right, wait. So he's kind of high pitched, right? But he talks like a stereotypical, like someone you would see on the show EastEnders. Now, I do a terrible British accent, as my wife has told me many times.
Which is ironic because his wife's British.
Yeah, this is true. My wife is British. But it's something along the lines of, run along now, or I brand you for your Noggleboffin and run you through. There we go.
That was solid.
All right, Lawrence, let's hear your Noggleboffin.
Hear my Noggleboffin?
Yeah, let's go for it.
So I've actually heard Alphinaeus' Noggleboffin.
Oh, no.
And so all of his halflings basically speak the exact same way, which is, "Hey guys, I'm gonna come over here and I'm gonna skewer you through." It's
Were they transatlantic?
No, it's just very Munchkin Guild. Is basically all of his halflings.
So the Deepest Sphere, we have, of course, like all of our materials, the adventure book. Deepest Sphere is level 6 to 9, but for conventions, it'll be level 3. We have a printed off new stat sheet that will come to the convention Game Masters. We also have our GM reference book, which, contains everything that the GM reference book has. You won't be using the stats in there, though, this time. That'll be the printed off one. We have the handouts. There are just a handful of them because it's a nice quick adventure. You have your maps, which we have 4 of them, 3 of which you will end up using. And then you have the 5 Gooey rewards. I believe it's 5.
Yes, it is 5.
5 Gooey rewards. We also have our 3 magic items and 2 portraits, which we'll get to in a moment. The portraits are of Smitty and of the barkeep.
Eyes. Friends, thank you so much for joining myself, Sir Gooey Lawrence, and Gooey Alexander here for our GM training. We cannot wait to see you guys at the next convention, and we hope that you guys absolutely love running the Deepest Sphere for your players.